Hey guys, tonight we are going to step barefoot into a medieval village right at the foot of a tall bell tower whose chime slices through the still air of dawn. You lie curled on your straw mattress, itchy from hay that pokes through the worn linen, when the first clang of the iron bell shudders across the countryside. There's no snooze button here. You probably won't survive this if you keep dozing. That heavy toll is your alarm clock, your schedule, and your calendar all rolled into one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know your location and the local time you're watching. It's always fascinating to see how our little community is scattered across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air outside your small timberbird cottage feels crisp, cool enough to sting the lungs as you step into the morning mist. Chickens scratch in the dirt. Geese honk their disapproval at nothing in particular. And a mangy village dog eyes you suspiciously as you shuffle toward the well. The bell tower looms above the thatched rooftops, a squat stone sentinel against the sky, its iron tongue still vibrating from the dawn toll. You clutch a wooden bucket, heavy even before the water, and think about how many times you'll haul from the well today. The village is awake now, groaning to life. You hear the slosh of milk pails, the thud of an axe against oak, and the occasional bark of orders from Arif, the local official who makes sure everyone's on task. You rub the sleep from your eyes, glancing at the horizon where the sun's gold bleeds slowly across the fields. Somewhere, a rooster crows far too late, as if it had hit its own snooze. Your bed, if you can call it that, was crowded. Brothers, sisters, cousins, sometimes even a piglet or two brought in during the cold months all piled together under coarse wool. Privacy is about as rare as soap, and the idea of your own room would sound like a fairy tale. Historians still argue whether families really shared space this closely every night, or if certain households managed more separation. Either way, let's just say deodorant wasn't invented yet. The tolling bell is not just for you. It's a command to the entire community. Peasants, craftsmen, even the village priest who now stumbles out of his rectory, rubbing sleep from his face. Timekeeping in this world depends on ears rather than wrists. No pocket watches, no alarms, just those heavy notes striking across miles of farmland. And depending on whether it's a feast day or just another ordinary Tuesday, that ring could summon you to prayer, labor, or even bad news like an approaching tax collector. You glance at the church itself, nestled beside the tower, its modest stone walls draped in ivy. Inside, light will soon pour through tiny stained glass windows, casting splashes of color across rough pews. You can smell the faint sweetness of beeswax candles still lingering from last night's vigil. But you won't go there yet, not until the second bell later this morning. First, there's work. There is always work. Breakfast, if you can call it that, waits at home. You tear into a hunk of rye bread so hard it could double as a weapon, soaking it in watered ale to soften the crust. Butter is a luxury, honey even more so, and don't even dream about coffee. It won't reach Europe for centuries. Instead, you chew slowly, watching steam curl from a nearby chimney, and try not to think about how many hours stand between you and the next crumb of food. The bell rings again, slower this time, steady and deliberate. That's the signal for laborers to move toward the fields. You shoulder a wooden hoe, its edge dulled by years of soil and stone, and head down the lane. Mud squelches underfoot. Pigs snort from a sty. You wave at a neighbor already hunched beneath a load of firewood twice his size. Morning, he grumbles, though he doesn't sound convinced. There's no rush. Everyone moves at the same rhythm, tethered by the tower's summons. You pass the village green, little more than a patch of trampled earth where sheep graze lazily. And all the while, the bell's echo lingers in your ears. It's both comforting and oppressive, like the heartbeat of the village itself. Some say that sound carries beyond the fields, warding off evil spirits. Others swear it can be heard by souls in purgatory, reminding them of prayers said in their name. And though modern historians doubt the supernatural acoustics, the belief was real enough to shape lives. As you approach the fields, you notice the sky brightening, a soft wash of blue stretching overhead. The morning fog clings stubbornly to the hedgerows, and your breath forms tiny clouds that dissolve into the warming air. You think of the seasons, how each bell throughout the year sounds different depending on the backdrop. Winter tolls through snow and silence. Summer bells compete with buzzing insects. But this spring morning, the sound hangs crystal clear, urging you onward. You may feel like a character in a grand tapestry. But here's a quirky truth. Medieval people didn't see their lives as particularly romantic. To them, the bell tower wasn't some picturesque landmark. It was a very loud reminder of obligation. And if you thought modern alarm clocks were cruel, imagine one that could summon you not just to chores, but also to taxes, tithes, and the occasional emergency muster when raiders were rumored to be near. Yes, you might get dragged out of bed to fight with a pitchfork. Better hope you stretched first. As you trudge onward, the sound of the bell fades behind you, replaced by the grunts and chatter of neighbors. But you'll hear it again, always again. Noon, evening, feast days, fast days, weddings, funerals, emergencies. The tower is the soundtrack of your life. You wonder if, centuries from now, anyone will still hear its echoes. By the time you reach the edge of the fields, the sun is climbing higher. Your hands tighten on the hoe. Your back braces for the long hours ahead, and your mind drifts briefly back to that straw bed you left behind. The bell called you out, and you obeyed, as everyone must. And so, the day begins. The path from the village green unrolls into a patchwork of fields, each strip long and narrow, separated by ridges of turf-like ribs across the earth. You trudge along, hoe on your shoulder, and feel the weight of centuries pressing down. The bell tower is still visible behind you, its gray stone catching the morning sun, but its toll has faded into memory, replaced by the rhythmic sounds of people preparing for toil. The air smells of damp earth, manure, and the faint sweetness of blossoms carried from hedgerows. Birds dart overhead, shrieking as though mocking your pace. Ahead, a cluster of men and women already bend to their tasks, stirring soil, sowing seeds, tugging stubborn weeds that seem to multiply overnight. You join them, slipping into the rhythm as naturally as breathing. The open field system is your world. Each family holds scattered strips of land, scattered on purpose so no one hogs the best soil. Your plot might sit beside your neighbor's, or across the lane, or half a mile away. It's communal, frustrating, and deeply binding. When one family struggles, others notice because you can't avoid them. You joke that it's like farming with your in-laws permanently watching an arrangement that sounds terrifying even today. You plunge your hoe into the earth, soil clods breaking apart under the wooden shaft. The ground is heavy from spring rains, sticky enough to cling to boots. Planting wheat means repetition. Scrape, scatter, pat down, move forward. Hours stretch long when the job is this simple, but the work is survival itself. Without these seeds, there is no bread. Without bread, there is no you. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had enough leisure to balance the endless grind. But in this moment, sweat already beads your forehead, and leisure feels like a cruel joke. Children run nearby, too small for the heavy tools, but not exempt from labor. They chase birds from the freshly sown furrows, waving rags on sticks and shouting to scare away thieving crows. Their laughter rings high, but it's work nonetheless. This is how childhood is spent. Later, they'll gather dung from the lanes to fertilize the fields. Yes, medieval play often involved poop duty. You'd better appreciate your modern Lego bricks. The rhythm of agriculture is eternal. You raise your head, glance at the horizon, and think of how your life pulses to the same beat as ancestors you'll never meet. Winter plowing, spring sowing, summer weeding, autumn harvest, then repeat, year after year. The bell may toll for prayer or warning, but the land itself commands you louder. A neighboring farmer straightens, wiping his brow with a sleeve darkened by sweat. He grumbles about the Lord's demands how much of this grain will be owed as rent. How much to the church as tithe? How much left to keep? You nod, but don't answer. Complaining too loudly is dangerous. Words can spread faster than weeds. Instead, you lean back into the hoe, pushing, breaking, sewing. The tools are crude but effective. Iron tips glint dull in the sun, handles worn smooth by generations of calloused hands. Oxen groan nearby, pulling a plow that carves deep furrows into the soil. The driver shouts, slapping the reins, urging the animals to keep straight. The smell of sweat, human and beast, mingles in the warming air. You think fleetingly of tractors, modern machines that could do this work in minutes. Then again, your ox never breaks down from faulty wiring. It only breaks down from exhaustion, which is somehow worse. A quirky fact slips through your thoughts. Some medieval peasants swore by talking to their seeds, whispering blessings or even insults before burying them. The idea was that words carried power, either coaxing growth or scaring the grain into thriving. You wonder if you should whisper something now, though with your luck. The neighbors would overhear and never let you live it down. By mid-morning, your back aches like it's been folded in half. The sun climbs, painting sweat across your face and staining your tunic with dark patches. A neighbor cracks a joke about your posture, comparing you to an old, bent tree. You fire back with a grin, saying he looks more like the scarecrow than the field hand. The laughter bubbles briefly, easing the strain before silence folds in again. Work doesn't stop. At the far end of the strips, women carry baskets of seed. They move methodically, scattering handfuls with wide arcs, their feet pressing the earth gently after. Behind them, another group spreads manured dark clumps that smell strong enough to chase away even the birds. Farming, you realize, is both sacred and disgusting, an endless dance between dirt and sustenance. The bell rings again, faint across the fields. Not a call to stop, but a reminder of the passing hours. It echoes like a voice reminding you that time is not yours to own. Some historians debate whether peasants felt crushed by this strict order or simply absorbed it as natural. Standing here, hoe in hand, sweat dripping, you feel both. The bell shapes your day like a shepherd's staff, prodding sheep along a narrow path. You pause to wipe your brow and let your gaze wander. The countryside is alive, with motion plows dragging, oxen groaning, men shouting, women scattering grain, children chasing crows. The fields themselves stretch like a quilt, strips of tilled soil alternating with green patches left fallow. Beyond, woods stand dark and mysterious, a place for firewood gathering, secret trysts, and the occasional outlaw who probably has worse hygiene than you. As noon approaches, your stomach growls like a disgruntled ox. Bread waits, maybe a slice of cheese if you're lucky, and thin ale to wash it down. But you can't leave yet, the strips aren't done, and the Reeves' eye watches from afar. One misstep, one slack moment, and your name might end up in his tally of shirkers. Better to keep working, shoulders hunched, rhythm steady. Another fact slips into mind. Crop rotation. You leave one strip fallow, let the soil rest, while others are sown with wheat or rye. Some peasants sprinkle beans or peas to enrich the ground. It's not science as modern textbooks describe it, but it's tradition backed by centuries of observation, and it works most years. The years it doesn't, when rain drowns the grain or sun scorches the soil, famine walks into your life like an unwelcome guest. The bell finally tolls louder noon. This time, it grants mercy. You drop your hoe, stretch your spine, and walk toward the shade of a hedgerow. Bread comes from a cloth satchel, ale from a wooden flask. You chew, drink, sigh. Around you, others do the same, slumping onto grass, wiping grime from their faces. Conversation stirs gossip about the Lord's steward. Rumors of war somewhere far away, mutters about a neighbor's daughter, sneaking glances at the blacksmith's apprentice. For a brief moment, the fields feel less like burden, more like a shared stage where everyone acts their part. You lean back, chewing the last crust, and let your eyes drift closed. The bell tower is invisible here, but you know it will call again soon, dragging you back into rhythm. For now, though, you savor stillness. Breadcrumbs falling onto your tunic, the taste of earth still in your mouth. Your break doesn't last long. Noon slides into early afternoon, and with the bell's echo fading in the distance, you head back toward the village. The furrows behind you look neat, orderly, and exhausting, as if the earth itself now carries your sweat as a signature. Tools slung over your shoulder, you follow the beaten track back to thatched rooftops rising in the distance. The promise of food, even the simplest kind, draws you on. By the time you pass under the shadow of the bell tower again, the village hums with familiar sounds. Chickens cluck indignantly underfoot. Dogs nose through scraps, and smoke curls lazily from chimneys. Your stomach growls like a medieval dragon, though instead of gold or maidens, all you crave is bread. Inside your cottage, a rough wooden table waits, its surface scarred by knife marks and stains from years of meals that barely filled anyone. Your wife or mother, or perhaps older sister, pulls a loaf from the cupboard. The bread is dark, heavy with rye, and so dense it feels like lifting a small brick. You crack it open with effort, teeth working at the crust until it softens. Bread is the center of your diet, and though it's coarse and sour, you savor it like a feast. After all, this isn't white flour reserved for nobles, but the hearty staple that keeps peasants alive. Historians note that medieval diets were astonishingly bread-heavy, often making up 70% of calories. Imagine explaining the modern keto diet to someone here, they'd probably accuse you of heresy. Alongside the bread comes ale, poured into a wooden cup. It's not the hoppy craft brew of modern pubs, but a weak, watered-down version barely stronger than flavored water. Yet it's safer than the well, which can harbor all sorts of unpleasant surprises. You take a long gulp, relishing the slight temps on your tongue. Water may quench thirst, but ale keeps your insides from declaring mutiny. You sit back, gnawing your bread when the real feast arrives. Gossip. The table hums with conversation, neighbors leaning over benches, children sneaking crumbs, everyone eager to trade the latest tidbits. One villager swears he saw the steward sneaking an extra chicken into his car. Evidence, perhaps, that even the Lord's man can't resist temptation. Another mutters about a peddler who passed through last week, selling miracle charms said to ward off toothache. Supposedly, it's just a dried frog's leg tied with string. The man shrugs. Might as well try. My molars are killing me. Quirky, yes, but not far-fetched. Medieval folk often trusted charms, amulets, and whispered blessings as much as herbs or poultices. You recall seeing a neighbor wear a leather pouch filled with feathers and pebbles, convinced it would keep fevers away. Did it work? Hard to say, but if believing makes you feel safer, maybe that's the point. Historians still argue whether these folk practices were genuine faith or simply desperation dressed as ritual. Your conversation drifts, inevitably, toward matters larger than the village. A traveling merchant told someone about a war brewing miles away, knights clashing in places with names you've never seen. For peasants, such stories hover on the edge of reality, distant enough to feel like fables, close enough to inspire unease. You imagine armored men riding through your quiet lanes, banners snapping, hooves churning mud. The thought is chilling, though you joke aloud that if war does arrive, you'll hide under the haystack and let the cows fight in your place. The laughter earns you a cuff on the shoulder, but it's worth it. As the meal winds down, you pull a slice of onion from a bowl, biting into its sharp sting. A neighbor offers you a wedge of cheese, hard and crumbly, the sort that smells strong enough to walk away on its own. Cheese, rare in your household, feels like treasure. You share a bite with a child beside you, who giggles as if you've handed them a golden coin. Food is more than sustenance. Here it's a bond, a ritual, and sometimes a battleground. The bell tower tolls again, not for labor this time, but for devotion. Its notes roll across the rooftops, bouncing off walls, echoing down the muddy lanes. People murmur short prayers under their breath, crossing themselves before returning to their chatter. The line between daily life and spiritual duty blurs constantly. One moment you're discussing the Reeves' laziness. The next, you're murmuring about the saints. It's all one continuous thread woven through the sound of the bells. You lean back on the bench, watching a group of older men argue about the price of grain. One swears it's higher than last year. Another insists it's just greedy merchants. Somewhere, someone mutters about witches, cursing the fields, because why not blame the unseen? The debate rolls on, loud and spirited, until a woman silences them with a glare sharp enough to cut bread. Medieval democracy, you realize, sometimes looked like whoever shouted loudest until the others gave up. After the meal, you step outside into the brightening afternoon. The sun warms your shoulders, the village buzzing like a hive. Women scrub clothes at the stream, their hands raw from cold water, and lie. Children chase one another in games that look suspiciously like training for wrestling matches. A blacksmith's hammer rings steady, each strike a reminder that not all labor happens in the fields. But you, for now, enjoy the lull. The bread sits heavy in your stomach. The ale softens the edges of fatigue, and the gossip still swirls in your mind. Life here is harsh, no question. But in these moments bread, ale chatter, you glimpse the threads that keep people stitched together. A passing friar pauses at your side, offering a blessing. He tells a story of a saint who once lived only on barley bread and water for years. You nod politely, though inside you wonder whether that saint also complained about how tough the crust was. Saints get remembered, peasants get backaches. Still, you smile, accepting the blessing because a little extra luck can't hurt. And so the afternoon stretches onward, with breadcrumbs in your beard, ale warming your chest, and gossip buzzing in your ears. The bell will toll again soon, calling you back to rhythm. But for now, you savor the pause, the taste of grain on your tongue, the low hum of voices carrying across the village square. The afternoon sun softens into a honey-colored glow as shadows stretch long across the village. You feel the day shift, not just in light, but in rhythm. For the bell tower stirs again. Its voice rolls over rooftops and fields, echoing through your bones, summoning you toward devotion. You sigh, brush the crumbs from your tunic, and fall in line with neighbors already shuffling toward the church doors. The building is modest, its stone walls cool and damp, roof pitched steep against the weather. You duck inside, the air instantly heavy with wax, smoke, and the faint musk of too many unwashed bodies crammed together. Candles sputter along the altar, their flames flickering like restless spirits. Stained glass, small and precious, casts jewel-toned fragments across the floor. It's not the grand cathedral of a city, but here, in your small parish, it's enough to feel both awe and obligation. The priest raises his hand, voice droning in Latina language you do not understand. Not really. Still, you cross yourself when others do. Kneel when they kneel, stand when they stand. The ritual washes over you like the toll of the bell itself, steady, commanding, inescapable. Historians still argue whether villagers truly grasped theology or merely clung to the patterns. From your place on the wooden bench, your knees aching, you suspect it's a little of both. Beside you, a child fidgets, tugging at their mother's sleeve. She hushes them sharply, though you can't help but smile. Faith is serious here, but humanity always sneaks in. Someone coughs behind you. Another snores softly until nudged awake. You hide your grin in your sleeve, careful not to draw the priest's eye. The bell outside punctuates the service, its echoes seeping through the stone, reminding you that devotion and time are twins. Each clang draws you deeper into ritual. Saints are invoked, sinners chastised, sins confessed in murmured whispers. You shift uneasily, recalling your own failing skipping work for a stolen nap. sneaking an extra loaf when you thought no one saw. The weight of guilt sits heavy, though the priest's blessing promises relief. Whether it truly washes your soul clean or just makes you feel lighter, you don't care. You'll take what peace you can get. Then comes the Holy Day calendar, dictated from the pulpit like a list of royal decrees. Feast of St. Michael, next week, a fast day looming soon, and whispers of pilgrimage opportunities for the especially devout wealthy. You nod along, though fasting is a grim prospect. Bread is already scarce enough without voluntarily giving it up. Still, you'll comply. The bell will remind you, and you'll obey, stomach growling or not. Quirky customs lace through the faith, and you've seen your share. On certain days, villagers sneak charms into the church, tucking them near statues of saints, believing the holy aura will boost their power. Once, you spotted a dried mole's paw tucked behind a candle, supposedly guarding against bad harvests. The priest pretends not to notice, though you catch him shaking his head. Belief is messy, layered, and practical. If it helps, it helps. After prayers, villagers linger in the yard, chatting as freely as they had over bread and ale earlier. Gossip, faith, chores, it all blurs together under the watchful bell tower. Someone asks if you'll contribute to the new church roof fund, hinting at the Lord's displeasure if you don't. You smile weakly, already calculating what else you'll have to give up this season. Faith is free, but church roofs are not. You stroll toward the churchyard, where graves lie beneath crooked stones. Names carved faintly into the rock remind you of how fleeting life is here. Infants, parents, old men, you see them daily, alive, and then suddenly here under the grass. The bell tolls at each funeral, its echoes both mournful and reassuring. They say the dead can hear it, that the sound guides their souls. You can't prove otherwise, so you let the belief settle over you like a blanket. Walking home, you feel lighter somehow, though the weight of obligation never truly leaves. Faith may not erase the aches in your shoulders or the hunger in your belly, but it binds the village together as surely as bread and labor do. You glance up at the tower, its silhouette black against the twilight sky, and wonder if its echoes reach higher than the clouds. The evening deepens, but the bells aren't done with you. At sundown, they toll again, this time for the Angelus prayer. You stop where you stand, bow your head, whisper words you barely understand but feel in your bones. The sound wraps the village like a soft cloak, pulling the day toward its close. You imagine farmers in far-off fields doing the same, all bound together by echoes that travel farther than any road. Inside your cottage, the fire crackles weakly, and you warm your hands. The children huddle near, eyes wide as you recount the priest's stories. You embellish, of course, turning saints into heroes, miracles into marvels that make them gasp. Religion, you realize, is not just about belief. It's about storytelling, a way of weaving wonder into weary hearts. Yet doubt stirs too. You think of the bell's endless toll, day after day, year after year. Is it faith or just habit, comfort or control? You chuckle softly to yourself, shaking the thought away. You'll let the historians debate that one. You're too busy surviving. Still, when the final bell of the day tolls, its deep voice spreading across the darkened village, you close your eyes and let it sink in. For a moment, you believe not because you've reasoned it through, but because the sound is too heavy, too ancient, too haunting to deny. The bell is more than iron and stone. It is memory itself, echoing through the countryside, carrying your prayers whether you whisper them or not. And so night folds around you, shaped by devotion and superstition alike. Tomorrow the bell will call again, and you will rise. But tonight, beneath the tower's shadow, you rest with the comfort of knowing that, whether for God, for community, or simply for rhythm, those echoes bind you to something greater than yourself. The next morning begins much the same, the bell dragging you from dreams, the cold air nipping your skin, the rooster crowing proudly as if it had done all the work. But instead of trudging to the fields again, you linger closer to the heart of the village. Today, the sound of labor isn't plows biting into soil, but hammers striking iron, wheels creaking, and looms thumping in a steady rhythm. For while the fields feed your stomach, the craftsmen keep your world stitched together. The blacksmith's forge is first to catch your eye. Its smoke curls above the thatched roofs like a dark finger pointing skyward. Inside, the heat rolls outward and you squint as sparks dance in the gloom. The smith himself is a broad-shouldered man, sweat streaking his soot-stained face, his hammer ringing like a second bell tower. Each strike shapes glowing iron into tools, hoes, nails, horseshoes, and, when duty calls, weapons. The smell of hot metal clings to everything, sharp and tangy, filling your nose until you can almost taste it. You lean against the doorway, watching him work. The sight is hypnotic. Hammer up, hammer down, iron yielding like clay beneath his blows. He doesn't pause for small talk, though his apprentice, a boy younger than you were when you first handled a plow, grins shyly and waves. You wave back, amused, remembering that your own first tasks had been just as menial, hauling water, sweeping floors, waiting years before being trusted with anything sharp. Historians still argue whether blacksmiths held higher status than peasants. But here, in the smoke and clang, you know one thing for sure: without him, the entire village would grind to a halt. Next door, the carpenter planes a piece of oak, curls of wood piling at his feet like golden ribbons. His hands are steady, his eyes sharp, and he pauses to measure with string and chalk. The rhythmic scrape of the blade is strangely soothing, and you find yourself lulled by the simple precision of it. He greets you with a nod, then mutters about repairing wagon wheels for the steward. Apparently, the Lord's horses aren't as gentle on wood as the reeve likes to think. You chuckle, promising to keep his secret gripe to yourself because no one wants to be heard, mocking the Lord's animals. As you wander farther, the sounds shift again. The weaver's cottage hums with the clatter of the loom, each beat like a heartbeat driving thread into cloth. Inside, the air smells of wool, lanolin clinging to your nose. Brightly dyed yarn reds, yellows, blues hangs from pegs like strings of rainbow. The weaver's hands move swiftly, sliding shuttles back and forth, feet pumping treadles, fabric growing inch by inch. You marvel at the patience it must take, imagining yourself tangled in yarn within seconds. It's here that gossip travels fastest. You notice women sitting at wheels, spinning flax into thread, trading stories as steadily as they twist fiber. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your memory. Some villagers believe spiderwebs could strengthen thread if rubbed onto it. Superstitious, maybe. But when you're trying to keep your only tunic from unraveling, you'll try anything, even raiding the rafters for a web or two. You grin, picturing yourself explaining to a future historian why you were crouched in the corner with spiders dangling over your head. The bell tolls faintly through the village, not summoning to fields or prayer this time, but marking the passing hour all the same. Craftsmen barely glance up. Their rhythm runs deeper than bells, bound to the demands of neighbors and lords alike. A broken plow can't wait, a snapped wheel can't roll itself, and torn clothing doesn't stitch itself back together, lest you count the invisible labor of a frustrated wife with needle in hand. You pass the cooper's yard, where wooden staves lie in neat rows. The cooper crouches, fitting them into the rounded belly of a barrel. The hoops squeak into place, hammered tight, until suddenly the shape is whole, solid, ready to hold ale or grain. You tap one experimentally with your knuckle, the hollow sound echoing back. "That'll be 2 chickens," he jokes, wiping his brow. You raise your hands defensively. You barely have 1 chicken to your name, and she's temperamental at best. Still, you admire his work, knowing a good barrel can mean the difference between spoiled food and a steady winter. Further on, the tanner's yard stinks so fiercely you gag before stepping close. Hides soak in vats of foul-smelling liquids: urine, dung, lime turning soft, pliable, ready for shoes and belts. You hold your nose, watching him scrape a hide with long, steady strokes. He grins at your expression, used to visitors recoiling. "Smells like money," he says cheerfully. You're not so sure. Still, you know his work is essential. Without shoes, winters would eat at your toes. Without leather straps, wagons wouldn't hold together. And so, even in the stink, there is survival. Throughout the village, every corner holds labor. The potter shapes clay at his wheel, his hands coaxing bowls into being. The miller at the edge of town waits for grain to grind, his water wheel turning with steady splash. Each trade feels both ordinary and miraculous, turning raw nature into something useful, something that keeps you alive. You think briefly about how these craftsmen stand apart from field hands. They work with fire, wood, wool, water, each with its own rhythm. Some neighbors mutter that craftsmen live easier lives, safe from the aching bend of plows. Others argue their work is harder, their reputation's always on the line. A single cracked pot or bent nail turning trust sour. Historians still debate whether medieval villages saw craftsmen as equals to farmers or something more. To you, watching sweat drip into sawdust and sparks leap from iron, the answer seems simple. Everyone's work is hard, just in different shapes. The afternoon stretches on, the sounds of hammer and loom blending into a strange symphony. You pause by the well, sipping water that tastes faintly of iron, and let your gaze wander. Children carry baskets of shavings to use as kindling. Women collect scraps of cloth for patching. Even idleness here is rare, fleeting, stolen in whispers between tasks. And yet, jokes find their way into the grind. The blacksmith teases the carpenter about crooked beams. The weaver mutters that if men spun thread, they'd still be tangled in the first hank. You laugh, knowing the truth of it. Life is too short, too uncertain, not to laugh even if your teeth are crooked and your belly is half empty. A bell tolls again, the late afternoon note rolling across rooftops. Its voice wraps the village, binding craftsmen and farmers alike in the same rhythm. Tools are set aside, sweat wiped away, and thoughts drift toward supper and hearth. As you walk home, you glance back at the forge, the loom, the yard full of barrels. Each sound lingers in your ears, mixing with the bell's echo until you can't tell one from the other. In this village, the craftsmen are as vital as the soil, their labor stitched into the very fabric of survival. Tomorrow, you may return to the fields, but tonight, you carry the clang of the hammer and the hum of the loom with you, echoes of another kind, just as steady, just as eternal. The bell wakes you again before dawn, its iron tongue reminding you that even your sleep belongs to someone else's schedule. You rub your eyes and stretch, stiff from yesterday's wandering, but today the rhythm is different. Instead of trudging off to plows or workshops, your steps follow a slower pull toward the center of the village, where faith gathers like smoke rising from incense. The church looms larger than any house, its stone walls cool against the early light. It isn't a cathedral, of course just a modest parish building, but compared to thatched cottages, it feels monumental. Its bell tower rises above roofs and trees, the true heartbeat of the countryside. As you step closer, the morning chill sharpens into the faint, resinous smell of wood smoke mixed with beeswax. You slip through the heavy door into dimness. The air is thick, with a blend of damp stone, candle wax, and something ancient you can't quite name. Shadows stretch across worn pews, and the altar gleams faintly where a chalice catches light. The priest, already awake for hours, moves in silence, arranging vessels, straightening linens. He glances up, offers a nod, then bends back to his task. You settle onto a bench, listening as others shuffle in, men, women, children. Even a dog who sneaks through the door before being shooed away. The murmurs die as the priest clears his throat. In Latin, words pour forth, strange yet familiar, the same phrases spoken across kingdoms. You understand little, but the rhythm of it feels eternal, a steady chant rolling through centuries. At the heart of this ritual is confession. The priest beckons you, one by one, his voice low, inviting you to whisper sins into the dim. You lean close, feeling both exposed and relieved. Did you mutter a curse at the reeve? Did you pocket an extra egg from the henhouse? Did you drift off during Mass last week? Each secret is poured out, each forgiven with a murmured phrase. You rise lighter, though you know you'll stumble again by supper. Historians still argue whether villagers truly understood the theology behind confession or simply treated it like a ritual bath, a way to scrub guilt off quickly. Oh, smile at the thought, whether bath or blessing, you'll take what you can get. After all, water itself is scarce enough. Why not use words to wash your soul? Communion follows, the priest lifting bread and wine, transforming them with solemn gestures. You receive the wafer on your tongue, dry and tasteless, yet strangely powerful. The wine is sweet and sharp, burning slightly as it slips down. Around you, villagers kneel, bow, cross themselves. For a moment, hierarchy fades. Reeve beside plowman, widow beside steward's wife, all equal before the altar. Even the child tugging at his mother's sleeve seems wrapped in reverence, at least until he lets out a loud sneeze that echoes through stone arches. Stifled laugh ripples, quickly smothered. Later in the morning, the priest begins his sermon not in Latin now, but in your own tongue. He speaks of charity, warning against greed. He paints vivid pictures of heaven's glory and hell's fire, though you can't help noticing he lingers longer on the fire. His voice rises, urging you to confess again, to donate, to live humbly. At one point, he tells of relics brought to the region long ago, bones of saints said to heal the sick. A quirky tidbit sticks in your mind. Villagers once pressed chickens against relics to make their eggs more plentiful. You stifle a chuckle, picturing a bewildered hen perched on a saint's shinbone. The sermon drifts into warnings against superstition. Though irony tickles you because if relics and miracles aren't superstition, then what are they? Still, you nod gravely like everyone else, because arguing theology in church is about as smart as poking a bear with a stick. After Mass, the courtyard fills with chatter. People greet neighbors, trade news, and slip gossip into handshakes. The priest himself drifts among them, smiling warmly, but listening sharply. You sense he knows more about everyone than anyone knows about him, man holding threads of the whole village in his hands. Children chase each other around the well, their laughter bouncing off stone. Old men argue about whether fasting rules are too harsh. Young women glance shyly at young men, their eyes darting like sparrows. A market of souls, you think, where the currency isn't coin, but attention, forgiveness, and whispered judgment. And the bell marks the end of service. Its deep tone rolling outward, reminding even those who skipped that God and priest still claim their ears. You leave the church feeling strangely lighter and heavier at once. Lighter from confession, heavier from the reminder that no sin goes unnoticed. Not by heaven, not by neighbors. Back in the village, you notice how the church's influence seeps everywhere. The calendar bends around feast days and fast days. Weddings are blessed beneath its roof. Deaths are mourned with bells tolling low. Even disputes about land or animals sometimes find their way to the priest. His word carrying weight equal to the reeves. It's as though the stone walls have grown invisible arms, wrapping around every cottage and field, binding you in unseen threads. You pause by the cemetery behind the church, rows of wooden crosses tilting at odd angles. Fresh mounds of earth sit beside weathered graves, reminding you of life's fragile edge. Some crosses bear carvings of simple prayers. Others are blank, weather-scoured. You kneel briefly, brushing your fingers over one, feeling the rough wood against your skin. Somewhere underfoot, someone once laughed, worked, confessed just as you did today. You whisper a prayer, not entirely sure to whom, then rise and step back toward the village. The afternoon stretches, but instead of tools, you carry a strange quiet inside. Faith, ritual, community, they feel heavier than plows, yet easier to bear when shared. You think of scholars debating whether medieval peasants were deeply pious or just outwardly obedient. Perhaps the truth lies in the middle. You pray because you fear, because you hope, because everyone else is kneeling beside you. Or maybe you pray because when the bell rings, silence feels more dangerous than words. As you pass through the village, you notice shrines tucked into cornerstony wooden crosses, carved saints, flowers wilting in jars. Faith spills beyond the church walls, stitched into daily life. A woman kisses her pendant before feeding chickens. A child recites a prayer before drinking water. Even a blacksmith mutters a blessing before striking iron. As if sparks could summon demons if he didn't. You grin at the thought, half amused, half wary. The sun sinks lower, shadows stretching long across the fields. Another bell rings the evening call, echoing soft and slow. You feel its hum in your chest, a reminder that no matter where you are, the rhythm of your life belongs not just to plow and lord, but to prayer and priest. The countryside may be filled with fields and craftsmen, but at its center always stands that tower, its voice eternal. You head home, tired yet oddly soothed, carrying both the priest's warnings and the relief of whispered sins. The air smells of wood smoke and damp grass. Somewhere, a dog barks, then falls silent. The bell's last note lingers in your ear, fading into the dusk, reminding you that tomorrow it will call again, louder than hunger, deeper than fear, more enduring than even the memory of your own voice. The dawn bell calls again, but this time its echo threads through a different kind of anticipation. You drag yourself from sleep and rub your eyes, realizing today the village is abuzz with something larger than fields, workshops, or even Sunday Mass. A festival is approaching, one of those rare days when toil gives way, least partly to music, color, and a sort of reckless joy. The air feels different as you step outside, sharper somehow, carrying the sense of roasting meat and freshly baked bread drifting from ovens. Carts creak down the lane, loaded with baskets of ale, honey cakes, and salted fish. Even the children are restless, darting underfoot, their laughter chiming like bells in miniature. The whole village moves toward the green, the open space near the church, where the fair will bloom like a sudden flower. You follow the current of bodies, and soon the sounds of preparation reach your ears. Fiddles tuning, drums being tested with steady thumps, vendors shouting about their wares. The reeve struts importantly through the crowd, reminding everyone that fair dues must be paid. You roll your eyes but drop a coin anyway, because arguing on festival day feels like spitting into the wind. The first real sight that catches your attention is the stage being built near the church wall. Rough planks are laid across barrels, forming a platform where musicians and storytellers will later work their magic. A man tests a lute, strumming a few notes that ripple through the air, bright and jangly. Nearby, a bagpiper inflates his instrument with a comically strained expression, and a boy bursts into laughter before being hushed by his mother. Soon, the music begins in earnest. Fiddles scrape into life, bagpipes drone, drums pound a rhythm that stirs your feet before your mind even agrees. Villagers form circles, hands clasped, spinning in clumsy but enthusiastic dances. You join them, laughing as you stumble, your partner steadying you with equal clumsiness. Sweat gathers at your temples, your heart pounds, and for once the rhythm is joy, not labor. And oh, the food, what a feast, spreads across rough wooden tables. Roasted goose dripping fat onto bread crusts. Honey cakes sticky on your fingers. Ale poured into clay cups, frothing at the rim. You take a swig, the bitter warmth sliding down, and suddenly the fiddles sound sweeter, the reeve less annoying, and the world itself a little softer. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Some fairs even hired ale tasters, officials tasked with making sure the brew wasn't watered down. You smirk, thinking you'd volunteer for that job in a heartbeat. Between songs, a storyteller takes the stage, his voice booming without need of bells. He spins tales of saints battling dragons, of lords disguising themselves as beggars, of maidens outwitting demons. His hands carve the air, his face twisting into villains and heroes alike. Children gasp, adults chuckle, and you find yourself leaning forward, caught in his web. You know these stories already, but in the heat of the crowd, they feel new, electric. Historians still argue whether medieval festivals were primarily religious celebrations or excuses for drunken revelry. Standing here, cup in hand, music thrumming through your bones, you suspect the answer is both. The priest blesses the feast at its beginning, but once the ale flows, laughter drowns out sermons. Heaven and earth meet on the green, tangled together in song and smoke. The fair offers more than food and music. Merchants from outside the village arrive, their stalls spilling with exotic, goods-bright cloth dyed deeper than local hues, knives with polished hilts, trinkets carved from bone or shell. You finger a small pendant, shaped like a bird, and wonder if you could afford it. The merchant names a price equal to 3 hens. You laugh, mutter that you'd rather keep the hens and walk away, though the pendant's gleam lingers in your mind. Games and contests spring up among the crowd. Men wrestle in the dust, their grunts mingling with cheers. Archers loose arrows at painted targets, each thwack of wood and feather, followed by applause. You try your hand at a simple game tossing hoops over pegs and miss every time, earning mockery from children who do better. You grin, bowing dramatically, declaring yourself champion of missing. They roar with laughter, and you feel oddly proud. As the afternoon deepens, music swells again. Dancers whirl faster, skirts flaring, boots thudding. Couples slip away behind hedges, seeking shadows of privacy the green doesn't allow. Vendors shout louder, ale flows freer, and the air thickens with smoke, laughter, and the sweet ache of too much merriment. And yet, beneath the joy, tensions simmer. A drunken shout turns into a scuffle. 2 men tumble to the ground, fists flying. The crowd pulls them apart quickly, but the edge remains. A dog snatches a loaf of bread, sending a woman shrieking after it. The reeve frowns, counting coins with nervous glances at the steward, who hovers watchfully at the edge. Festivals may be a release, but order always lurks nearby, ready to clamp down. You slip away from the press of bodies for a moment, finding a quieter spot near the church wall. From here, you watch the green unfurl like a tapestry. The fiddles and laughter, the smell of roasted goose, the children tumbling in the grass. Above it all, the bell tower rises, silent for now, but waiting. You know that soon, its toll will break through the music, reminding everyone that joy is temporary. Time still marches on. Evening creeps in, the sky painted orange and purple. Torches are lit, their flames flickering against faces flushed with drink. The music softens, then rises again in one final burst, faster, reckless. You dance once more, your body aching, your breath ragged, but your heart soaring. For tonight, labor is forgotten and laughter rules. When the bell finally tolls, its sound is almost shocking, cutting through the chaos with solemn weight. One by one, villagers drift away, carrying baskets half empty, songs still humming on their lips. The green empties, leaving trampled grass and scattered crumbs, the air still heavy with smoke and ale. You walk home under the fading stars, your head light, your feet sore. The echoes of fiddles and laughter follow you, mingling with the deeper echo of the bell. You know tomorrow will bring fields, plows, sweat, and silence again. But for tonight, joy has been allowed, carved out like a rare jewel in the mud of daily life. You sink onto your straw mattress, stomach full, heart tired, ears still ringing. The bell sleeps now, but you know it will wake before you do, calling you once more into its endless rhythm. For now, though, You let the echoes of music lull you. The memory of firelit dances warming you as sleep finally claims your bones. Morning arrives soft and gray, the sun hidden behind a veil of mist, turning the village into a watercolor of muted tones. You rise reluctantly, muscles stiff from yesterday's festival dancing, and step outside. The bell tower looms above, its silhouette cutting against the pale sky. A constant reminder that time and labor wait for no one. Today, your path leads you beyond the familiar cottages and fields, toward the forest at the village's edge, a place both feared and revered. The forest smells of damp earth, moss, and decaying leaves, a scent that hints at life hidden from the open fields. Birds skitter through branches, sending cascades of sound in every direction. You trudge along the narrow path, each footstep crunching over twigs and fallen leaves. Hunters, gatherers, and firewood collectors already move deeper inside, axes over shoulders and baskets swinging. You join them, the rhythm of the forest grounding you in a different kind of work. Today, you are here for wood and forage, essentials for survival. The village hearth depends on this labor. Fire is life itself. You spot a sturdy oak, its roots gripping the soil like fingers. You take an axe from your shoulder and strike the trunk, the iron biting into wood with satisfying resistance. The tree groans under your blows, and you imagine it as a living witness, silently judging your strength. A quirky fact surfaces: some villagers used to whisper apologies to trees before felling them, believing spirits resided in each trunk. You mutter a half-hearted sorry, partly out of habit, partly out of superstition. Around you, others work similarly. Women gather mushrooms, berries, and wild herbs, their baskets swinging and brushing against ferns. Children pick fallen nuts, occasionally tossing one into the air to chase it down with squeals of delight. A hunter kneels beside a trap, checking for rabbits or squirrels, his hands steady despite the morning chill. You think of how essential these woods are: meat, fire, medicine, all hiding in the green shadows, waiting for the careful eye. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants viewed forests as resources or realms of supernatural fear. Standing among the trees, you feel both: the wealth of sustenance beneath mossy stones and the persistent shiver of unease, as if eyes watch from shadowed hollows. You catch movement in a thicket and pause, heart hammering, only to see a fox dart away, its orange tail flashing like a flame. Your axe finally bites through the oak, and you drag the log toward the path, grunting with the strain. Oxen or carts will come later to haul heavier timber, but the work of felling begins with you. Shoulder pressed to handle, sweat dripping into your eyes. Nearby, the blacksmith inspects a tree he has felled, his apprentices buzzing like flies, sorting smaller branches for firewood. Sparks from the forge would mix poorly with dry kindling, but somehow the rhythm of chopping seems connected to hammering, as though the village itself beats in time with both tools. A sudden rustle draws your gaze, and a scholar's debate flits through your mind. Did peasants truly understand the medicinal properties of forest plants? Or did they rely on tradition and luck? You kneel to examine a cluster of leaves, recognizing them as mint, which will flavor tea or soothe stomachs. Another plant, bitter and knotty, promises to stave off infection if brewed carefully. You tuck a sprig into your basket, marveling at how life itself grows in these shadows. A quiet miracle you see daily, but rarely acknowledge. The midday bell tolls faintly, carried across the trees. It sounds strange here, distant and hollow, reminding you that civilization lies just beyond the forest. You wipe sweat from your brow and glance at the village roofs peeking through mist. Life continues there. Women at wells, children at play, the reeve pacing, plots being sown. The bell connects you, even here, to the wider rhythm of work, faith, and community. You pause for a moment, leaning on the axe, inhaling the damp, sweet smell of moss and soil. The forest is alive with small details: beetles clinging to bark, a squirrel nibbling on acorn, a bird's nest tucked high above. You realize how dependent the village is on this hidden world, often feared, sometimes revered, always exploited. You think of the odd practice of tree spirits against some elders claim misfortune befalls those who disrespect the forest. You snort softly. Superstition, practicality, survival all intertwined in ways you cannot easily untangle. After hours of chopping and gathering, you shoulder a bundle of wood and trudge back toward the village. Your feet are muddy, hands blistered, but there is pride in accomplishment. Without this labor, hearths would go cold, meals would be sparse, and the villagers would feel the absence deeply. The forest has given life and sustenance, but it demands respect and strength in return. Along the way, children emerge from hidden paths, carrying mushrooms and nuts as if they've uncovered treasure. Women smile, collecting herbs, sorting them into bundles to dry. A young man limps slightly, the effort of carrying a heavy branch evident, yet he grins at your presence. The village depends on all of you, the small, the old, the strong, the cunning. Each contribution matters, no matter how modest. As you near the first cottages, smoke begins to curl from chimneys. The aroma of bread baking greets you warmly, a reminder of human ingenuity layered atop raw survival. You deposit your wood in a neat stack for later splitting, then head toward the square where other villagers have begun to prepare evening meals. The bell tolls again, softer now, marking the close of work and the approach of twilight. You catch snippets of conversation, someone discussing a forthcoming feast, another recounting a local tale of witches in the forest, their eyes bright with delight, or fear it's hard to tell which. A vendor arranges produce, muttering about how strange it is that peasants favor certain vegetables over others. You smile. Some things never change. The forest may fade from immediate sight, but its echoes linger in the meals, the stories, and the rhythm of life. As evening settles, you sit by your cottage, exhausted yet alive, reflecting on the day's labor. The bells toll, distant now, marks the passage of time more acutely than sunlight or shadow. You realize how interwoven life is here. Fields, forests, workshops, and faith, each essential, each demanding attention. The forest has reminded you of hidden worlds, of quiet growth and unseen dangers. And you, carrying logs and herbs, are both witness and participant in its enduring cycle. Night creeps softly over the village, the sky painted deep indigo. The bell tolls one last time before sleep, and you settle onto straw, warmth of the fire near, muscles aching pleasantly. Thoughts drift to tomorrow, fields to tend, tools to maintain, stories to share. But tonight, the forest's echo rests in your bones, its green, hidden pulse mingling with the village's steady rhythm. Dawn arrives again, soft and golden, spilling across the thatched roofs of your village. You rise slowly, body stiff from yesterday's trek through the forest, muscles still humming with exertion. The bell tower calls, its iron voice rolling across the misty fields, summoning you into the rhythm of the day. Unlike yesterday, there is no festival, no music, only the steady, persistent cadence of labor. You trudge toward the fields, noticing the dew clinging to grass and cobwebs stretched between fence posts. The smell of damp earth rises with each step, rich and familiar. Your hands are already itching for the feel of soil, the tug of roots, the snap of stalks under pressure. The rhythm of planting and tending is ingrained in your bones, and though it tires you, it is oddly comforting. Life here is simple but relentless. Today, your focus is the wheat field near the village's edge, still young and green. Rows stretch like stitched fabric across the earth, their tips swaying slightly in the morning breeze. You bend to examine the soil, pressing it between your fingers, noting moisture and texture. Good soil is the difference between survival and hunger. Every handful matters. Around you, fellow villagers move in tandem, their movements a choreography passed down through years of toil. Children assist with watering, carrying small buckets, their laughter interwoven with the rustling leaves. You lift your tools, a sickle, well-worn and nick-tanned, begin work, slicing at weeds that threaten the young wheat. Each cut is precise, practiced, each motion measured. Sweat beads on your forehead, trickles down your neck. You pause occasionally to wipe it away, breathing in the earthy aroma, listening to the rhythm of life around you. Birds circle overhead, calling warnings or greetings. A dog barks somewhere in the distance. The bell tower's shadow stretches long and thin across the fields. Quirky customs echo in your mind as you work. Some villagers believe that planting certain herbs alongside wheat will keep evil spirits at bay. You chuckle quietly, recalling how old Marjorie once tied garlic around the field's edge, convinced it would protect her crop. Historians still argue whether these superstitions truly impacted yields or were purely ritualistic comfort. Either way, the tradition endures, a thread connecting you to countless generations of toil. By mid-morning, the sun climbs higher, and the labor intensifies. You pause to drink from a small flask of water, the cold liquid a sharp relief against your parched throat. Around you, others share small bits of conversation between strokes of work. Discussions range from practical whose cow wandered into whose plot to philosophical. Whether a fairer lord would ease taxes or whether the river as flooding last season was a divine sign. You smile inwardly. Some arguments never age. At noon, the bell tolls, softer now, marking a break. Villagers gather beneath the shade of a solitary oak, sharing bread and ale. You break your loaf with a neighbor who jokes about how little has changed since their grandfather's time. You laugh, nodding, aware that this is truth. Seasons pass, generations turn, yet the rhythm of work and pause remains unbroken. The bread is coarse, the ale weak, but they are sustenance, both physical and social. Stories are exchanged, laughter shared, and for a moment, the burdens of labor lighten. The afternoon is dedicated to tending the fields and preparing for the evening. You notice the subtle details: a patch of wheat that has turned slightly yellow, a line of soil that needs leveling, a small nest tucked safely among the stalks. Even in the monotony, life persists, delicate and determined. You move carefully, mindful not to disturb the balance, yet firm enough to assert control over what will sustain the village in the months to come. Along the edge of the field, a traveling merchant appears, cart creaking, horses snorting. He calls greetings, showing wares, bright cloth, iron tools, and small charms for luck. Children gather, eyes wide, and you exchange a coin for a small pouch of dried herbs. They are not strictly necessary, but superstition and comfort often go hand in hand here. You tuck the pouch into your belt, noting its earthy aroma, a reminder of the forest and the unseen threads linking labor, faith, and belief. As shadows lengthen, the village hums with preparation for evening. Tools are cleaned, animals fed, fires built. The bell tolls once more, calling villagers toward prayer, and you follow, weaving between cottages, exchanging nods and greetings. The priest waits at the church, his presence steady, his eyes calm. You kneel, cross yourself, and listen to the murmured prayers of neighbors. Faith, work, superstition, they are inseparable, woven into the fabric of life as surely as wheat grows in furrows. Evening deepens, and you return home to a simple meal, a broth rich with herbs, bread, and small cuts of meat preserved from earlier hunts. Children chatter at your feet, recounting their day, and you smile, offering bits of wisdom and humor. The bell tolls faintly in the distance, its echo soft against the night sky. You sit by the fire afterward, letting fatigue settle into your muscles. You reflect on the day's labor, the subtle victories, the straight row of wheat, a broken tool repaired, a child's laughter echoing across the fields. Life is demanding, unrelenting, yet there is satisfaction in persistence. The bell, ever present, reminds you of continuity, of connection, of the unseen structures holding the village together. As darkness deepens, you step outside briefly, looking up at the stars just beginning to pierce the night sky. The wind carries the smell of wood smoke and earth, the distant murmur of neighbors finishing chores. You take a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of the village in your chest, the bell's echoes mingling with your heartbeat. Survival, faith, labor, and community. Everything threads together, inseparable, enduring. The bell tolls one final time, soft and resonant, as if to lull the village into night. You retreat to your straw mattress, exhausted but alive, muscles sore yet satisfied. Thoughts drift lazily. Tomorrow will demand the same effort, the same devotion, but tonight, for a fleeting moment, you rest. The echoes of the bell, of work, of laughter, of stories, settle into your bones. A quiet lullaby for a world older than memory, older than stone. Morning arrives soft and gray, a gentle hush settling over the village as if the world itself is exhaling. You stir beneath the rough blanket of straw, muscles stiff from yesterday's labor, but heart steady with the rhythm of life. Outside, the bell tower stands tall against the horizon, its silhouette casting a long shadow across dew-speckled roofs. The iron tongue swings again, its sound rolling over fields and cottages, calling you to the day's work. You rise, stretching, feeling the familiar ache in your back and shoulders, and step outside. The air smells of damp earth, smoke from early fires, and the faint temps of livestock. Chickens cluck impatiently. A dog growls at a wandering cat, and somewhere in the distance, a child cries for attention. The village awakens slowly, each sound layering over the other, forming a tapestry of life that is at once chaotic and comforting. Today's task is harvest preparation, a day that will demand every ounce of your strength. You walk past cottages where neighbors already labor, some carrying buckets of water, others adjusting oxen harnesses. The fields stretch before you, green and gold, the wheat waiting to be cut and gathered. You lift your sickle, the handle smooth from years of use, and begin to move down the first row, slicing through stalks with practiced precision. Each stroke feels ritualistic, a dance learned over countless seasons. Nearby, a small group of children follows the adults, mimicking your motions with wooden tools. Their laughter punctuates the work, lightening the weight of labor. You remember your own first harvest, clumsy hands and stubbed fingers, and can't help but smile. Historians still argue whether children truly contributed significantly to village labor or if their presence was more symbolic, a way of learning and observing. Watching them now, you see both. Small hands tug at stalks, eyes wide with effort. And yet, every tug counts. Every step forward a part of survival. The sun climbs higher, warming your back and turning sweat into a sheen across your skin. Around you, villagers work in unison. Women tie bundles of wheat, men lift and stack sheaves. Elders supervise, ensuring nothing is wasted. The bell tolls faintly, marking mid-morning, its voice a reminder that time is measured not only by sun and season, but by sound. You pause to drink from a flask, the cool water a welcome relief, and watch as a young man stumbles, spilling a bundle. He curses softly, embarrassed, and you step forward to help him right it. The community operates in a delicate balance of independence and interdependence, each person's labor supporting the whole. Amid the routine, small oddities emerge. A neighbor places a sprig of rosemary atop a bundle of wheat, whispering a prayer for protection against pests. Some villagers tie tiny charms into the sheaves, hoping to ensure a good yield. You shake your head slightly, amused, yet take note. Superstition and faith are as much tools of survival here as sickles and oxen. Quirky traditions are woven into labor, an acknowledgement of forces both seen and unseen. By noon, the sun hangs directly overhead, hot and unyielding. You pause beneath a tree, its shade a welcome respite, and look across the fields. The village spreads like a living map, cottages dotting the landscape, smoke rising from chimneys, the bell tower a steadfast sentinel at its center. You take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of cut wheat, earth, and wood smoke mingled with the distant temps of ale from a nearby tavern. The air vibrates with effort and anticipation. the rhythm of a community sustaining itself against uncertainty. After a short break, work resumes. The wheat is bundled and carried to the threshing area, where more villagers pound and sift, separating grain from chaff. You join them, shoulders aching, hands raw, but spirit steady. The sound of wooden mallets striking grain, the low hum of conversation. The occasional exclamation, everything forms a symphony of survival. You think briefly about how this very grain will sustain the village through the harsh winter months. And the weight of responsibility presses down, heavy but grounding. Historians still debate how labor was divided among genders and ages in medieval villages. Watching the dynamic unfold, you notice women moving with grace and efficiency, children learning by imitation, men straining with raw strength, and elders offering guidance. It is a delicate choreography of skill, experience, and endurance, each part vital to the village's sustenance. As afternoon edges into evening, the work slows. The sun dips lower, painting the fields in amber and gold. Sweat and dust coat your skin. Your hands are blistered, but the harvest is well underway. Villagers begin to relax, sharing stories and jokes, laughter rippling across the fields like wind through wheat. A young boy demonstrates a clever way to balance bundles, drawing applause from adults. You smile, reminded that even in the harshest toil, ingenuity and humor survive. The bell tolls again, calling everyone toward evening prayer. You wipe hands on your tunic and follow, moving with the crowd, each step measured and deliberate. The church is quiet, candles flickering, air heavy with incense. The priest delivers his evening blessing, words rolling softly over the gathered congregation. You kneel, feeling the day's labor ebb from your muscles, replaced by the quiet weight of reflection and gratitude. After prayers, you step outside into twilight. The village hums softly as chores wind down. Animals are fed, fires stoked, tools stored. You wander to the outskirts of the fields, watching shadows lengthen and merge with the night. The bell tower stands tall against the darkening sky, a constant presence, its echoes lingering even as you close your eyes and breathe in the cool evening air. As night settles, the rhythm slows. You return to your cottage, settle onto straw bedding, and allow yourself the rare luxury of stillness. Outside, the wind carries the scent of the forest, the faint tang of smoke, and the distant sound of a dog barking. The bell tolls softly once more, a final reminder of continuity, connection, and the enduring heartbeat of your village life. You reflect on the day labor, faith, superstition, community all woven together in a tapestry as intricate as any story. The bell's echoes reach into your bones, carrying memories of work, laughter, devotion, and survival. You let your eyelids close, the fire's warmth lulling you, the village quieting around you, and the steady pulse of the bell a comforting lullaby. Tomorrow will come, demanding the same effort, the same care, the same resilience. But tonight, you rest, cradled in the timeless rhythm of village life. The bell's voice fading into a gentle hum that drifts with you into sleep. The night stretches softly around you, a gentle blanket of darkness punctuated by distant stars and the occasional flicker of torchlight in a neighboring cottage. You lie on straw, feeling the warmth of the hearth seep into your bones. And for the first time today, you let the world slow. Each breath carries the scent of wood smoke and earth, grounding you in the rhythm of this medieval life, steady and unhurried. The bell tower, silent now, seems to hum in your mind, its echoes folding gently over memories of fields, forests, laughter, and toil. Outside, the village settles. Children nestle close to parents, dogs curl near fires, the wind whispers through thatched roofs and trees. You can almost hear the heartbeat of the community, steady, enduring, infinite. The day's burdens fade, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of survival, connection, and simple joys, the soft crunch of wheat beneath your hands, the warmth of shared bread, the fleeting thrill of music in the square. Even superstition and ritual, once pressing and strange, now feel like a thread weaving comfort into the fabric of your life. You close your eyes, letting the tactile memories rough wood, cool stone, soft straw linger in your senses. Time slows. The rush of seasons, the urgency of labor, all soften. The bell's voice, though distant, guides you into rest, a lullaby as old as the village itself. Tomorrow it will call again, but tonight you are free to drift. Carried by echoes of life, lived fully, quietly, and richly. Softly, almost imperceptibly, the village exhales, and you do too. You are part of its rhythm, its pulse, its enduring story. With each fading echo, your mind surrenders to sleep, the warmth of community and continuity wrapping you gently. Dreams wait, tender and patient, as the medieval countryside rests alongside you, timeless and eternal.